Okay, we're live on Goddess Vibrations, the spiritual sexual empowerment show. And today I have a special guest, Cindy Chau of Wellness Vibes. I reached out to her and invited her on because I was really drawn in by your twin flame story. I think you titled it Relational Trauma, and you had a 4-part video series that you did that you said you channeled, like downloaded, that was a spiritual assignment.
Yes.
And I really appreciated it. And what I found fascinating is the fact that you're actually a psychotherapist. You're a licensed marriage and family therapist and a spiritual one. And so you kind of have this unique position to be able to discern and differentiate between these spiritual relationships, which sometimes people will bypass a toxic relationship and call it a twin flame relationship. And I feel like your story really kind of teased out these elements, and I got really fascinated about that and wanted to talk to you and have you on the show. So this show is Twin Flames or Toxic Relationship. That's our topic. We'll see where it goes. I have been acquainted with this twin flame concept for maybe about since 2014. So I'm still not 100% convinced on the whole. It's hard. How do you tell? How do you prove it? Right? But I kind of take everything with a grain of salt. I gather, I chew it over, I digest, I do believe. And so I'm just always curious to see what other people's experiences are and what they're believing about it. So welcome. And is there anything else that you would like to say, Cindy, about your background or who you are, what you do? Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Thank you. First off, I just love that we're talking about this. It's a hot topic, and I feel like there's camps in the twin flame world. Like, I'm looking for my twin flame. I want to find my twin flame, or twin flame is just toxic relationships, or there's no such things as twin flames. There's just so many belief systems around this. So I think in this intention of just getting to hear about different experiences related to twin flame, because ultimately we decide for ourselves what our truths are in relation to everything. So I am here for this topic. I know you've had your twin flame experience, and I love the fact that we're both psychotherapists, we're both integrative psychotherapists, we're both very spiritual. So this is very aligned. So I'm really happy to be here. Mm-hmm. And when you reached out to about this topic and reminded me about my relational trauma series, because when I posted it and it was done, like the assignment was complete, I didn't rewatch it mostly, I let it go. And then when you talked about it, I was guided to watch specifically about my twin flames, the part 3. And I was just kind of shocked by how much vulnerability, because, as therapists, we're supposed to have and maintain specific discretion and specific disclosure. And there was no, I was very open and very vulnerable in my twin flame journey. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
Honestly, I think that's what I loved about it, was the vulnerability and you really sharing yourself as a real person, like a human being. You also have this education, this training, and, this ability to be with others in vulnerable spaces, which relationships, sexuality, all of this spiritual, openness is such a vulnerable space. And you have an ethical board kind of to back you up in that, right? But then the fact that you were able to be so vulnerable and show your humanness was really powerful. And in the end, sharing your story and how you came through it, holding on to yourself, was I just feel like it was a message that needed to be out there and really contributes to this kind of like twin flame culture, because it's really interesting to watch and read and listen about this twin flame culture. And I've there's everything from stuff all over Instagram now to like the perspective of my spiritual healer who's like in her 70s and has been channeling archangels for decades, and really doing her spiritual work and has her own twin flame story, and she's even said to me, I think there's like, maybe versions of twin flames she's like, most of my relationships have been very intense spiritual relationships like this. She said, however, it used to be kind of a special thing, this idea of twin flame, and now it's been diluted by the culture, right? So it's interesting to hear everybody's perspective. And then you and I also having a very logical side, which that comes online sometimes. And then there's this other side, I do hypnosis as well. So you have to get on with that right brain and the power of belief and knowing anything is possible. So there's that side of me too. So I'm constantly balancing those two perspectives. So thank you for your vulnerability. And I tend to self-disclose more than the average therapist. Also, that human element, but a lot of my background is working with adolescents. And if you don't self-disclose, you're not going to build a relationship. They won't trust you. So there's that too.
Yes. Yeah. So, no, we're on the same wavelengths.
Yeah. And that's brave. It's brave to do that, to have that self-disclosure. So in the spirit of that, I hope the folks that are watching this, either live or on the replay, did go and watch your videos beforehand, like I asked them to yesterday when I posted the promo. If not, you can pause this and then go to her Instagram, which is Wellness Vibes, and see her videos that she did. Or, watch this and go back and see. You said the twin flame part starts in the third video.
Yes.
But you have a lot of backstory too, because there was a triangle, there was an interesting relationship with your ex-best friend, which it was crazy. I was listening again last night to that part and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is a lot. This is a lot.
It's so funny that you brought that up, because even though that friendship and that engagement ended in 2020, I just cleared the final strand of energetic bonds and cord from the ex-best friend. It was easier for me to end and cut because I chose. So the conclusion of my twin flame journey was I chose me. I chose myself. I chose to love myself, and I chose to break away and not go into separation. It was a clear, defined agreement to spirit and declaration that I do not consent to engaging in the twin flame journey anymore. It's been real. I learned the lessons, but I choose me. Mm-hmm. And then there was that third party component that spanned across lifetimes. So we're talking really spiritual now and very metaphysical and occult and mystical, but there was a triad between this physical reality's best friend, my ex-fiance, my twin flame, and me that spanned between lifetimes. And the disruption between my ex-best friend, I finally cleared that cord just this week. So there was a lot to even learn in releasing anger and resentment and truly embodying forgiveness, even though there was lifetimes worth of betrayal, lifetimes within that triad.
So let me ask you this question, because there's probably most spiritual folks have heard of a twin flame or know what that alludes to. And there might be some other folks that are like, what's that? That's how I was in 2014. I pulled this twin flame card out of a Doreen Virtue deck, and I was like, what is that? And I had just gone into a past life regression with Dr. Brian Weiss, and I had this concept of twin soul came up, and it actually had to do with an advanced society of a polyamorous society that actually was like true intimacy, not this fake polyamory where you just want to date over the people and not have the communication and the integrity and all of this. And so it was all interwoven in that. And then this twin flame card came up and I thought, what the heck is that? I've never heard of that. And then dove into everything I could find on the internet, right, to understand this concept. And so the interesting thing is it's supposed to be our own soul, right? Split into two and going into two bodies and multiple embodiments until eventually you're prepared to reunify. And then the theory goes that once there's reunification, is that technically your last lifetime of your last embodiment? And then you kind of get to just be in the ethers for the rest of existence. I think that's kind of what it's
Right.
like, right? Unless
Right.
maybe you decide to come down again and split again. I don't know. But so when we think about it that way, I think it can be really hard to tease out the other half of your soul and codependency, right? Because
Yes.
it's like this urge to merge. Like you read all this literature about the twin flame journey is to merge, it's to reunify, it's everything that's happening to you is happening to them, everything that's happening to them is happening to you.
Right.
And yet, how do you have a healthy sovereignty within that kind of urge to merge, which reminds me of Bowen family systems theory too, which I studied extensively after graduation. It's like that differentiation of self, yet staying connected, right, to your important others. And then I know this is a long question, but and then the theory that there might be different shades of twin flames, this is what I've thought about. If the soul can split into two bodies, it could certainly split into more than two bodies, right? So maybe that's the shades of twin flame. I don't know, when people say there's shades of twin flames, I'm not exactly sure. Or if maybe those are folks in your soul group, kind of like your soul pod, and they are very close to a twin flame relationship, but not quite the ultimate. I don't know. Well, how do we ever know these things? Like you said, for each person, it's their belief, their understanding, their journey.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, what do you think about this whole thing of the other person being a part of you? And so like when you say you choose yourself, are you also rejecting a part of yourself then? Or is that like the part that's splitting off and it's like, you got to get your shit together. Like you need a couple more lifetimes. And then, because you can't stay tied to someone who's displaying toxic behaviors.
Right.
What you had said to me is that when we talked about going live with this is that there were things that you just couldn't get down with.
Right.
That power and control dynamics and things like that in your relationship that just were not healthy for your human.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I love the question that you were building up because it just goes to show how nuanced and how layered this topic is. It's never just like a simple question or answer because it is all of it. It's the spiritual, it's the physical, it is. So make no mistake, it can appear very toxic because it is revealing to you your innermost core wounds and shadows is what this is my experience. And it's kind of what it's known for. Like your twin flame is reflecting back to you all of it, the beauty and the shadow. And so the recognition of a twin flame is indescribable. You feel at home, but it's not someone you would typically date. The meeting was organic, and then the first conversations, the first month, it's just effortless. It's beautiful. When I met my twin flame, I knew that I loved him for lifetimes. I knew that this was not our first rodeo. I knew that there was a kindred tenderness, and I will always say to this day, he is one of the most beautiful souls I've ever met, hands down. And when I tell that to my friends, they're saying that's because it's a reflection of how beautiful your soul is and stuff. But he was one of the most triggering relationship. And yes, it could appear very toxic. It could 100% appear very toxic because there are parts within ourselves that we haven't addressed, and the relationship will activate that. And so you're asking questions you've never asked before. You're looking and revealing parts to yourself that you've never seen before in the light, but they will trigger that. And so at the end of the day, we make choices about how you want to grow because the twin flame relationship serves as a huge catalyst for soul growth, huge catalyst. No matter how short or long the relationship, even it be a month or two, you're having the most rapid fire growth because you are with this person who is mirroring you back in such a soul level. And technically we came together in 2018, but we were only really in a committed relationship for about 6 months. But from 2018 to 2020, here and there, energetic, bonds and stuff, but we really gave it the old school try on the earth level of being in a committed relationship for just 6 months. But I tell you, in those 6 months, I healed lifetimes of attachment wounds, learning boundaries, knowing what it feels for me to feel love and ask for what I need to feel loved and supported. All of that. He was like the penultimate. It's like a video game where you go through all these rounds and you have a villain in each round and you pass it. And then it leads up to the very last penultimate round before the game is over. He was like the ultimate villain that, that embodied all my exes, shades of all my exes into one man. And I feel like I defeated the whole game. I feel like I actually integrated parts of myself, and I don't feel like I rejected it. I felt like I actually stepped more into my power when I chose not to move forward with that relationship.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the piece where you say it's this feeling of home. It's this instant awareness that you spent lifetimes together, and yet it's the most triggering relationship also, because I've been in all relationships are triggering, let's be honest, almost all, if you're doing it right. Yes. If you're doing it right, you're actually growing, you're not like acquiescing. All relationships are triggering, but there's a special kind of triggering, right? Like you said, the core wounds, the deeper, like
yes.
lifetime wounds that are coming up that you're never gonna heal, or even sometimes know that are there to that level until this sacred mirror shows up, right? And just shines it right at you, and you're like, oh, and you can get mad at this other person, but then realize, damn, this is within me. So that's the integration piece, right? What were some of the physical sensations, I'm curious, that you felt when, both the good and the bad with this intense relationship? What do you think are the physical sensations that characterize a twin flame relationship?
So I think it depends on your sensitivities, because I'm claircognizant. So I receive downloads. It's just like a knowing that comes in. So it's more of a psychic sense versus like a physical sense. But I did get my anxiety. So I had anxiety all throughout grad school, and it was managed until the twin flame. And I'm like, oh, this is an anxiety attack. We haven't seen this before. So so it brought that up. But on the positive side, I felt the tingles, I felt euphoria, I felt just bliss. There were many times because he's a very spiritually grounded person too. So we would hold hands and meditate together, and I can feel the electric charge move through me. And I was like, we found each other, and it feels amazing. So you can feel, well, sometimes if that's your sensitivity to it, the euphoria, the bliss, the lightheadedness, the sparkles, the tingly, the sensations.
Oh, I just apparently whatever I was supposed to say, I wasn't supposed to say. I started to choke. I don't know if that ever happens to you. It happens to me occasionally as a therapist and on the podcast. Well, yeah, I mean, I totally resonate with being claircognizant, and just that knowing, and this like just downloaded awareness, and just having this felt sense, right? And I noticed that in my experience, which it was also like losing time.
Yes.
Time didn't really exist, because there can be such an energetic charge together that linear time just seems to somehow like fade away. And it can be a little bit hard sometimes to figure out where you're at, and there can be moments like that. And I found that in the triggering times, that when there was a disagreement or we were at odds with each other, that again, that feeling of anxiety that felt like severe dysregulation that I haven't probably ever felt, really, even in my most and I've been through a shit ton of trauma. Like even in my most traumatized states, I don't remember feeling like I just needed to jump out of my skin. Like
Right.
it was just like such a intensity that I wasn't sure what to even do with myself. And my normal self-soothing didn't really work. It didn't even touch it. It was like, go put your feet in the sand or go to the beach or like shake or breathe. Like none of that stuff really did much to take the edge off. And so I think that became kind of frightening for both of us, right? But then, like you say, this beauty and bliss and feeling of connectedness and expansive possibility, and kind of this feeling of, I guess, a little bit like you and I against the world. And you're not against the world, but it's like we could create anything. It's like this awareness that is an otherworldly connection. You could really truly create anything. And to be able to harness that energy, imagine. Because I think there are people that call themselves twin flames out there that maybe aren't. Maybe they are divine partnerships, or maybe they are, soulmate relationships, and they claim to have mastered the relationship. And then, it's always like these folks are really young that are saying that. So skeptical, because I'm like, how can anybody that young and like new into their relationship have mastered? I mean, it's possible. Maybe they're old souls, but so I'm a little skeptical. But yeah, to be able to actually harness that energy and to create with it and use it for good. I mean, how do you deal with that, knowing that you chose yourself? You said, I'm not going to continue on with this twin flame journey, this contract, knowing that perhaps that was on the other side of it. Like that was a possibility. I mean, it's one of many possibilities, but in your story, it seemed like the one that you were experiencing it just wasn't.
Yeah. Yes. That's the appeal, right? You meet your other half and you elevate the world, you elevate yourself, you expand the light, and it's a team, that perfect marriage of divine masculine and feminine, and to spread more love around the world, essentially. Like there's a clear mission between the union, and it's super collaborative and expansive and healing. And I saw that being a possibility for us. I saw that we could have, because he's also a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and we saw the community spaces we could build. Like it was downloaded into us, the future we could have had. And I saw that, and with even the kids, I saw the future kids, and we're in the picture. They visited each of us, our future kids. And ultimately, I saw that I could do that by myself, because it's all about coming back to source energy, coming back to oneness, coming back to just pure unconditional love. And I was not going to sacrifice more to get there in that road, that specific journey with my twin flame. It also was dependent on him doing the work in a way that we can both match that beautiful vision that we saw. But the journey that he was going to take to get there was longer than I needed, was really disruptive to my soul's journey. And ultimately, if the end game is just to be more love, connect more back to yourself and be your own merge of divine feminine and masculine and be your own light and healing to the world, I chose to do that and learn that with embody it within myself, then wait along for him to sleep with more women, finally heal his mother wounds at my expense. And he wanted to do all of that while I give him kids. And I didn't want to raise kids while he figures all of that out. And then in seeing that being a very real possibility, I chose to ask for my other options and see and receive my other opportunities in reaching my highest potential without the twin flame journey, because I did not, and honestly and willingly, I did not accept his journey. I just wasn't going to wait around for him to figure out polyamory or open relationships, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just simply the basis of his polyamory, and I've said this before, and I said it in my video, that I feel the basis of his polyamory was not grounded in, it was grounded in shadow. It was grounded in abandonment wounds, mother wounds. It wasn't from a place of, I genuinely know I'm meant to connect with multiple people and I have integrity and I will honor in every relation. It wasn't like that. Why can't you just, if you know that why can't you just accept that this is where I'm at? And because I have free will and I chose not to.
Yeah, I really admire that, because you're holding the flame, you're holding a standard for a more evolved, more loving society. And I love what you said about, if the end game is to create more love on the planet, then I don't have to go through all this trauma and pain on his journey. It's more like creating love moment to moment, and just, on my own, and expanding that through my journey. And it doesn't seem like the twin flame relationship, I mean, obviously there's suffering involved, but it doesn't seem like, it seems like it's supposed to expose the suffering that's already there and the wounds that are already there, not create more wounds, more
Right. That's
trauma
such a good point.
to undo. Right. That doesn't seem like that's the right path. So I'm curious about what his spiritual guide, where his spiritual guidance is taking him. And also the doing the work part. I mean, again, this is something, I think what's really interesting about this twin flame concept is it's like the extreme ultimate version of really all relationships and all sacred partnerships, because in a sacred partnership, both have to show up doing the work. One
Yes.
can't be carrying all the weight on their back. One can't be overcompensating or overfunctioning for the other. They both have to be doing the work, right? And I had another spiritual reading where the gentleman said, you could have everything. You and your partner could have had everything. Like, you're very aligned. This is very expansive future, is very, it's very divinely timed, all of this, but he's not showing up to do the work. So it's not going to happen. And if he's not showing up to do the work, which is kind of like what you're saying, is that if you stay connected to that energy and that relationship, they're going to drag you through the mud. They're going to drag you through their trauma, because if you have a divine purpose and you're not facing it, which part of our divine purpose is to face our shadows, is to heal our wounds, is to uncover these in love and honor and accept these deep, dark places of ourselves that we've split off or we've rejected and projected onto others. If we're not facing that and we're trying to heal through another person rather than looking at ourselves,
Definitely.
we're it's like self-abuse, right? So I honor your choice, because you chose, no, I'm not going to go through all of that pain. It doesn't have to be that painful.
It was really painful. And it was just like what you were talking about, you shared that you have a history of trauma and you have had experience with anxiety, but the anxiety that is brought up specifically with a twin flame relationship, it's different. It just, because we're talking about soul transformation. It's so much beyond communication skills and attachment wounds. It's the deep seated, like ugly, murky things that will be revealed. And so
like you said, lifetimes.
So many lifetimes.
Yeah.
We got into, and I'm really grateful, we got into things that I probably wouldn't have cleared if it wasn't brought up in the 6 months that we were intensely trying, such as the power and control situation. Mm-hmm. And you know, the ironic thing is, when he came back from his Tantra retreats with his polyamorous sexcapades, he actually did come back a little bit more grounded and a little bit more healed. That's the irony in like sleeping with other women and trying out different aspects of intimacy through his tantric collective. I did feel a shift in him. I did feel that something cleared and something was healed, but I didn't want to continue. I just didn't want to be with someone that was his methodology of healing, because it directly impacts me energetically, you know, with being exchanging that much in energy with so many different people. And you think you can just come home to me and not affect me. Mm-hmm. I have felt the other women that he's been with. They have psychically hooked me. They have, you know, because he drew entanglement and cords with all these other women. And then he comes back to me and I feel all of that hodgepodge. So,
yeah, I've had both men and women, spiritual folks even, say, you don't really take on their energy, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm like, bullshit. Because as I was going through my divorce and my still husband was still sleeping in my bed next to me, I dreamt of the other woman 6 months before she contacted me on Facebook. And when she contacted me, I looked at her and I was like, OMG, she looks exactly like my dream. And I was able to pick that up just from sleeping next to the man. He wasn't even touching me at that point. He was not entering my body. There was no kisses or affection. We were just still sharing a bedroom. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when she contacted me, I realized how I have to trust my intuition and how my energy. And she's mad at me, like, your husband's a piece of shit. And I'm like, I know. Like, that's why we're splitting up. You can have him, but watch out. You know, kind of thing. And so she's kind of like having her moment. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. I'm feel bad for you. Yes. At that point, you know, I was done and I'm like, okay, now you have to sleep in your own bedroom because this is too much drama for me. Like I'm trying to take care of our kids. I'm trying to finish a PhD. I'm trying to earn money, build my business. Like, no more of this, you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, of course, whoever is out there putting his penis into other yonis.
Yes.
You are absolutely going to feel all of that. You're going to feel the energy of these women, their traumas, their past lovers, like all the stuff they're holding on to. And that's my thing too with sexual energy. Like, I love sex. Like, I study it. I research it. I'm like, oh, it's like the best thing ever. I'm a Taurus, you know, Pluto in my chart. Like, I love it. And I don't have that much of it when I'm not in a partnership, because it's just like, it's an energetic thing. Like, I don't want to take on people's, and maybe it's part of like being a healer and a therapist and a coach and all of this stuff too, because I do not want to take on people's trauma and their baggage, like literally into my body, especially being an empath. It's like, I'm very conscious about cleansing my womb and all the healing that I've done. And now I've gotten to this point where it's like, don't dump your baggage over here into my body. You take care of that and you get yourself up here where we're brushing clean, you know, like that sort of thing. And so it's interesting because I feel like the deeper you go into this, whether you call it your spiritual growth or you call it your empath abilities or your
Mhm.
ability to feel energy, this becomes a thing.
Yes. All of that, because even before my twin flame, I was also in a relationship with someone who cheated on me, and all I had to do was sit on the bed and I felt her energy. And this was not something that was revealed to me. I didn't even have an idea that he was being unfaithful. And then come to find out later, similar to you, she reached out to me after we broke up. He never admitted to cheating, but she said, I think we dated someone around the same time. And then I was like, you were who I felt. But energy doesn't just, we're energetic beings. To say that you don't take on like other people's energy when they have been intimate with them is just, I feel, not considering, not taking into the fact that this is an energetic world. This is like we're energetic beings, we're spiritual beings. It's the unseen is very much real. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have another interesting story about that too. I don't know if you've seen the Netflix show that or heard of it, the Tinder Swindler.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen an episode yet, or I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, it just came out, but I had a situation like that in 2018. So 2018 was a big year for this Jupiter and Scorpio, like all this crazy stuff
Mm,
happening. I can see how you have met your twin flame then as well, because it's like unearthing trauma and healing and all that stuff with the Scorpio energies expanding. But there was a kind of a con artist. He wasn't as sophisticated as the Tinder swindler, but it was very much a similar thing. And I actually befriended his girlfriend. I was
mm,
dating him on and off,
mhm.
and on and off because he wasn't consistent. So there were some red flags. So again, ladies out there, keep
Yeah.
standards high, and that will protect you from these guys. Also, like this is chivalry is big. Like if you're courting or dating a man, if you're expecting him to pay for dinner every time, it's less likely that he's going to be dating 5 other women at the same time if he
Right.
knows that he's got to take you out, because unless he's independently wealthy, because he's got several other women that he's also entertaining. So when you set these standards, it does create a safer dating
Yes.
experience. So in my case, this man didn't get any money or resources or anything from me in that way, but I think he liked to come and just get away from the drama that he
Mm.
was stirring up in LA. And anyway, my intuition hit, and I reached out to a woman on Instagram. Turns out that she was his girlfriend.
Whew.
And um, we together, rather than rejecting her again, I had the preview with this other woman who contacted me of like, I'm sorry, but I don't want to be a part of this, so I wish you well, and good luck. But
Mm.
this one, I felt like we both needed to figure out the truth and what was going on, so we worked together. And what was interesting is, before I knew that she existed, I was feeling she was pregnant,
Oh.
but I was feeling her baby fever.
Oh, wow.
Like that baby energy was
Yes.
coming through me. So we were again sharing energy through this
Mm.
man, and in a strange way it built a bond between us,
Oh.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're still friends to this day, and we like exposed him, and we contacted all the women that he was dating
Wow.
and seeing, and he lost his job, he lost his
Wow.
modeling contract, he lost all of these things because they found out he was out of integrity. He was sleeping with all of these people, right? He was out of integrity,
Mm.
lying. um, so it's interesting, like the way that listening to that sixth sense, I think that all women have, but the more you hone it, it does keep us safe. And so we can't deny that's
Yeah,
there, right? That's
definitely.
and to honor that. Yeah.
Yes, that sounds like a movie.
I know. That's
Its own Netflix special.
That's why yeah, it's a movie. That's why she contacted me. She's like, you got to see The Tinder Swindler. It's our story. And when are we doing our Hollywood movie? I'm like, yeah, we're going to sit down and write that screenplay soon, I hope. No, it seriously, we talked about it. It was a surreal experience. It was a very surreal experience. But just to change the topic a little bit, because I know we're kind of going off trail. Another piece that I really loved about your videos is how you brought up in your twin flame journey the experience of like racial injustice and racism, and you know how being in a twin flame relationship and interrelational or interracial relationship really kind of brought some awareness of those dynamics. And you said specifically in your situation, white man, Asian woman. And I found that really interesting too, because that's not something that's talked about very much. However, if it truly is a twin flame relationship that you've spent multiple lifetimes together, or at least, you know, meeting each other, chances are we've all lived in almost every culture or ethnicity, or sometimes maybe we're the same, sometimes we're different. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on that now, as after you've made those videos, and maybe you could speak on that a little bit more, like that learning and that awareness and healing for you with that topic.
That was huge. That was a big highlight, which I know he's going to write in his book, because he's writing a book, and I know he's going to feel like the facilitator of this part of my healing. But and I didn't talk about this in my my relational trauma series, but I throughout my entire life had a little bit of tension around the power dynamics, and even seeing white man with Asian woman. And growing up, I internalized Asian hatred. In growing up in this society, the white man, even in Vietnam, they hire white people to go to their weddings. Like, white is gold, apparently, in cultures. And also in my culture, it's like, they're like the cream of the crop in certain senses. I've talked to my cousin sometimes, and it's like, oh no, I wouldn't date an Asian man. It's like dating my brother. And I've had those thoughts before, most definitely. And so I dated white men majority, and he's white. He is white, and he's very white. And for him to also really be dabbling in neo tantra, he just was like he was the kind of man that says, you know, if I go into another person's house and they're of a different culture, I would also ask them, how would they show respect to me? Like, and we were bringing this up because I was telling him, like, if you go meet my parents, you'll need to take your shoes off, and there are certain customs and there's certain means of respect. And he was like, I don't know if I really, like, what about my sovereignty? And what about so he just came in with this colonizer view in my perspective.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I would agree with that.
And I was like, I don't think that's not how it works, sir. But he was revealing to me my own bits and pieces that I didn't heal. I wasn't totally satisfied with the fact that I was going to end up with a white man because of what so I healed my Asian hatred. I love being, I have so much pride and joy being a Vietnamese Chinese American. And then I saw the pieces of him that I called him a colonizer before too, because, and he even says, I called him out on the specific tantra that he does, because it's very neo-tantric. It's not traditional. It's not authentic. It's a subset of the Western perspective of tantra to fit into the Western world. So he said, but don't you think the Western world needs these practices more though? And, or don't you think it serves the Western? Like, shouldn't we have neo-tantric because we need it? And so those are his perspectives, but it brought up a lot of incongruence in me of being with someone like that. And so this is the iron, this is the nitty gritty. Was when I was growing up, I was at a very young age. I came across here's vulnerability, a porno mag that had white man, Asian woman, and it was a white sailor and an Asian Oriental prostitute. And that was something that I saw before 10 years old. Wow. And it was revealed later when I was in this twin flame relationship, he was in the Navy. And I saw myself as the Asian Oriental prostitute, and he was the white Navy sailor, savior, colonizer. That was entrenched in my core that I had no idea, and makes sense of why I internalized self-hatred as being an Asian woman and saw the white man. Like, it was the play out of the porno. We were literally an avatar of the porno magazine that I saw at a young age. And I revealed that to him, and he's like, see, you always say I'm a colonizer, I'm trying to take control of you, but it's your thing. It's your thing from seeing and witnessing that porno mag, and you're using that. So like, it did make me look within. It did he's like, I'm not trying to control you. I'm not like anything. So it did make me look within. It doesn't absolve him from his own power play dynamics, because that was very much at play, but it wasn't my projection of white man, Asian woman. And so that was something that was a huge clearing for me to literally be in those avatars, with him literally taking on the role of a white Navy sailor man and me unknowingly seeing myself as the Asian Oriental prostitute here to serve.
It's like being in an archetype that you're not comfortable with at all. It's not like moving into this archetype to bring empowerment, but more so to like become aware and then to create the healing.
Totally.
And since you brought up Neo Tantra, that's come up for me, and actually just this week, talking with a friend, because I run with a tribe that studies Tantra, and my regular co-host on the show, Kirti, is her parents are from India, and so she kind of practices the real deal Tantra, and she doesn't even use the word Tantra actually, because it's been so it's been so I don't know, culturally appropriated, I guess, like exploited, whatever else,
diluted,
all of this. And for me, I study spirituality, sexuality at the PhD level. I'm on a break from my dissertation, but my dissertation was on Kundalini experiences and that energy, that spiritual sexual energy. And I said, I don't even put myself out to do Tantra work or whatever, because it's like, you have to have a really deep knowing of the roots of this, to not be a colonizer, to not be somebody who's coming and culturally appropriating a tradition or an ancient practice. There's one thing to use it personally, I guess, and another thing to be making money off of it. I think that's the difference between like really gnarly cultural appropriation. You can go eat at an Italian restaurant, but if you're going to open your own Italian restaurant, you better know your shit. Like, you better have studied under somebody who's like in touch with the culture and embodies it and lives and breathes it, right? At least.
Totally.
So this is interesting. We don't think about this as much in the Tantra, and it seems like Tantra was really a big piece of your story, like your twin flame journey, Tantra as well as polyamory. And you were very open to going into these unfamiliar and maybe safe, it sounds like really unsafe experiences with your love, because you were open to him and what you were creating. And some of the stuff that you went through, I was like, oh my God,
like, it was wild.
Wild. again, why, and I can see how it was so powerful for you to reclaim
Mhm.
and just to call it out. And you're not doing it angrily or aggressively, but just calling out, this is not integrity. This is
Right.
not of integrity. And it's like how beautiful that you ended up becoming a therapist and even a, a
Mhm.
relational therapist, and had
Yeah.
that background before going into this experience so that you really can feel it out and be like, no, this isn't it.
Definitely. It was so from what I know from people who are students of authentic tantra, you don't go into the sexual pieces from day one. You learn about the history, you learn about the teachers, the roots before you even talk about orgasms. Oh
Mhm.
no, that was day one. That was day one of this tantra for
Let's
3-day
have the money
retreat.
shots right away. Let's start with the money shots.
It was like breath work to generate that like I don't even know if they use the word kundalini, but the red flags. And this is why I made the video. I think there's important to talk about the dangers, because this is people. I was curious about tantra for my own healing, for my own empowerment, for my own reconnection to self. And so you have people who are seeking a deepening of self intimacy and opening up in ways that are sexually very vulnerable ways. And then you have pockets of these um, schools of diluted thought which adds to trauma, which can add to trauma instead of increasing self-empowerment. I felt completely it was honestly traumatizing for me. I didn't want to do any eye gazing after that, because it can be very spiritual to just eye gaze or hug someone. My body shut down. And when we're talking about toxic relationships or twin flame, this is where I feel like it gets toxic when the other person isn't a participant in your healing too. Like you're not participating in each other's healings, where one is more willing, because I would tell him that I was triggered, but I felt really obligated to support him and attend all 3 days, even though my body was like, this is not for me. This
Mhm.
is weird. And I don't think this is something, the intuition speaks, especially in a twin flame relationship, because it's a very spiritual relationship. And so don't discount that psychically you evolve as well in these relationships. And
Mhm.
so where the toxicity comes is when you don't feel supported, when you feel alone in this union, where you feel like you're not being heard and your needs aren't met, and you're feeling like you're doing all the work in a union. That's where it got toxic for me, was when I would express the boundaries and the discomfort, he would take it as an attack. He would take it as he would get really defensive. He said, I told you from day one, this is a very important part of my life, and would not be open to my experience. Who was just hoping I could just jump into this cult and be all open arms. And it was no, it was not that.
Mhm. Yeah, the the safety wasn't there. And again, it's like, if you are one, if you really are that unity consciousness, is he now dragging you into his own self-punishment, or his own not self-punishment, but like what's the word, self-harm? Like,
Yes,
people haven't handled their wounds, they'll go and they'll self-harm, they'll try to kind of cope instead of actually heal,
exactly.
and then they end up doing more damage, and he's kind of dragging you into that. And I like what you said too about the intuition. It just triggered that memory in me of, when I was with my person, it was like my intuition was enhanced by
Mm.
10 times 10. It was like, psychic phenomena is not uncommon, and just really being able to see some crazy stuff, and almost having, like, it feels like superpowers, because being around this energy and this person is just like enhances, but I think it just enhances your whole sensory system, right? And that's
Totally.
why being in a place like that was emotionally unsafe for you, um, probably overwhelmed your system. And again, if you're an empath type person, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Miss Jaya, the energetic blueprints, the sexual
Mm-mm.
blueprints, well, you're probably got a healthy portion of energetic, which I do as well. And it's like once that system turns off, it's just like
Mm.
done, like turns off. But you know, the slow, subtle, energetic things can turn you on and get you to feel more open. But it really is about, you know, the safety, and it's also about
Totally.
the slow, sometimes the slowness and the tease of building up to something. And like you're saying, even with tantra and these more ancient traditions, it's like, how do you start with the foundation or the basics and then build up to
Yes.
this other piece, right? That wasn't, it doesn't sound like it was happening in your relationship in many ways.
In many ways. And even in the authentic tantra, you do solo work first before you even do couples work. And this was a whole like menagerie of couples. I was just, I've never been so out of my body in the most painful ways until that 3-day journey with him. It was just 3 days. It was his cohort that was to get certification, they have to facilitate. So it was a student-led tantric workshop. So it wasn't even with the teacher. It was all students trying to get accredited, certified, not accredited, because to be accredited, you have to be recognized as a credible place. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was a
Good,
huge part.
good distinction. And I feel like, you know, when I started studying this in my dissertation, it was hard for, I wanted to get the embodied experience of it, but I really did not feel safe to go to any Tantra community because I've heard all these horror stories like yours, like other women not feeling safe
Yes.
is like even women being borderline raped or
Mm-hmm.
raped in these situations, and it being like spiritually
Right.
shamed, you know,
Right.
for this or that or another. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to put my body through that, especially
Yeah.
as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I'm not going there again, the kind of thing, you know? So I feel like um, these, it's like knowing that the emotional intimacy and safety that needs to come before any genitals
Totally.
get, or any body parts come online. I even had a partner in group work 10 years ago, an older man. I was pregnant with my son at the time, so I was very sensitive, and he wanted to do like this eye gazing
Mm.
activity and place each other's hands on heart, you know, hands on our hearts and
Mm-hmm.
sit like knee to knee or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
in the group that we were in, the small group, I was processing layers of my sexual abuse in that group
Mm-hmm.
space. And I told him, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable. Like, I don't want anybody's hand on my heart, you know,
Mm-hmm.
especially an older man that I was a relative stranger to me. And he took offense to that. And he was actually my group partner for our thing that we
Mm.
had to co-facilitate. And he avoided me the rest of the trip and made it like really almost impossible to complete the group work, which is validation that
Yeah,
the energy was off,
exactly.
right? And that's why I didn't want his damn hand on my chest.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Confirmation for real.
Yeah, we gotta listen. We gotta listen to our bodies. Absolutely.
Yes.
Um, so I don't know, what other pieces would you like to share about your twin flame journey and coming out of it? Because I feel like I don't want to retell your story, or you know, people can go back to your page and like hear every juicy detail and all of the pieces because there's so much of it. But what are some of the other pieces that we haven't touched on that you think would be important for people to know if they're trying to differentiate between, is this a twin flame relationship or is this a toxic relationship? So I'm asking you from your own personal experience as well as kind of like your
Yeah.
clinician logical mind as well.
Mm-hmm. So what's first coming through is that you're going to have I think hormonally when you're with somebody, there's like a physiological connection, being around their pheromones and being around like 24/7. You physically like get high off of being with your partner's scent, and it's just building it's evolution. It's an evolutionary trait. It's how you know your tribe and stuff. And so when people go through separation or going through their toxic relationship, don't mistake a physiological response of just missing the person as I need to be with this person. I think that's a huge distinction, that just because you miss them, and even if the psychic stuff is there, that you feel him thinking about you or she thinking about you, at the end of the day, where are you honoring your highest truth? Are you doing more of the work? Are you feeling seen? Are you feeling respected? Are you feeling heard? And so that's twin flame or toxic or not. At the end of the day, you decide what is most beneficial to you. And it's hard to untangle because you do have such a soul connection. You can feel them. You can sense when they're thinking about you. And then on the physiological side, you literally genetically kind of miss them and their scent, and your body literally misses their body and being together all the time. And so know that that's all part of the picture, but always come back to self, because you don't want to get into a karmic bond or a trauma bond or a codependency just because you are allowing for the highest vision of you to adding light to the world to discount and diminish, you feeling unsafe in your body, you feeling unsupported, you feeling that you're doing most of the work by yourself. Or how much are you sacrificing to be in this relationship? And this isn't to say that the twin flame relationship isn't without triggers. It's just, is this the price you're willing to pay? And also, it can work if both of you are triggering each other, so long as both of you are doing the solo soul work outside of it. It's like, okay, here's a trigger. I'm going to present that to my healer. You do your side. So long as there's that symbiosis of like, oh, this is a trigger, I'm going to talk about it and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it with my therapist and you do the same. But if it's unbalanced in that way, that's when you run into separation mode. Because the twin flame, there's a runner, there's a chaser, there's separation, there's reunion, but it's what you do in that time. What are you doing in separation? What are you doing in union? How are you feeling? And I feel like there's also something important to say, to get rid of the labels. Because I think there's a lot of romanticism around, this is my twin flame, I have to make it work, this is my penultimate person. I mean, this is my accelerator to the soul evolution. And I had that. And I still said, absolutely not. I'm not putting myself through this. And now I have been shown many times that my actual divine partner is coming, because I made room for that. And it's not going to be with so much heartache and trauma. And ultimately, it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what comes through for me is you don't have to go backwards in your healing journey in order to get to this ultimate destination that the twin flame relationship promises, or that you think is possible. So it's like, nah, like I'm taking back my power. I'm taking back my sovereignty. I'm taking back what I believe to be healthy for me. And I'm not going to dip down and go to the depths of hell with someone in order for the promise of elevation right here. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's such a flip on the spiritual stuff out there, right? Because it'll have you, I think it can be dangerous sometimes, because it can, if people get really into it and they're not aware as you were. I mean, I really admire your ability to be in your spiritual self and also like hold on to yourself and be grounded.
Yes.
But I think that can be hard for some people, especially people that are really into the spiritual stuff or get swept up in this felt experience, right? And
yes.
And you're even saying you were for a while, like you were there, and I've been there as well. But then coming back to yourself and saying, no, break that contract. I'm going to align with a more divine partner where I don't have to feel so much of this wounding and toxic stuff. I mean, obviously there's still going to be healing and exposed wounds and triggers and all of that stuff to work through.
I'm being reminded of a channeling that I did in working with somebody who wanted more clarity on her twin flame relationship. And the message that was channeled through was that the twin flame original purest concept doesn't really apply to the times that we are living in now. Because before it was crucial, evolution wise, civilization wise, in terms of the collective back then, it was kind of necessary for people to find their other person to raise the vibration and raise the light. Nowadays, 2022, that message doesn't hold true for everybody anymore. It's not so much necessary or required for the shift in the new earth and everything that we have built as a whole society in the world to find your other person. It's served in its purest form in that way that we see in the literature and see in the romanticization. Like, this is how you ultimately evolve. That was true for the time, for many centuries, like probably Atlantis, all the way up till, but during the modernization and where we are now as a society, it doesn't hold true that much anymore. And so that's why you get to choose to marry the divine masculine and feminine within yourself. You don't necessarily need, well, this is from the channeling that I've gotten. I know that there are other schools of thought, but from what I have been shown in my own work with spirit is that it's not as, it doesn't hold the same weight or even the same integrity as it once did. And it's totally okay it is totally possible to reach your highest potential without meeting your twin flame. Because ultimately it's two people. So if the other person isn't doing the work, then you can rise by yourself and with another aligned divine partner.
Well, right. And like you said, from what I've read and understood, the twin flame journey isn't meant to bring two human physical bodies together as much as it could happen for sure. And it could work. But it's to integrate the inner divine masculine and feminine, right? And so this person in another body is helping you to do that for yourself. And then you have your own sovereignty, your own free will of like, am I going to stay with this person or am I going to, have another experience kind of thing? And so I hear what you're saying. And it's interesting because I've heard, maybe this was more popular when we are in the North Node in Gemini, which is the twins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of thing. But I've also heard that now is the time when all the twins are coming back together because of all the crisis on the planet and the shifts and the Aquarian age. And it's like, we need them to source the evolution and whatever else. But I don't know, just listening to you and your channeling, the sense I kind of got, or what I thought is a possibility, is what if you're already aligned? What if you've already reunified and you're still in this human body? Just because reunified doesn't mean that you now have to be split into two bodies, right? And continue out this lifetime. So if you have that inner unification, it's kind of, it's like a twist on it,
Totally.
Twist on the story. Yeah. So do you do readings for people on their twin flame partnerships?
I do readings. I keep it open. It's technically called surrender sessions because I am trained in Akashic readings and Reiki. I'm a channeler and mediumship. And so I just say, come as you are, and we'll see what spirit has in store. So it could be they come specifically about the twin flame, and then spirit actually channels something that they feel is more relevant. And I always just ask, right? Like, oh, you want to know about this, but let's actually talk about this, which ultimately impacts that and every other area of your life. So I leave the agenda and the work that I do outside of therapy. Right now, I'm taking a little hiatus on therapy and I'm being more proactive in the spiritual coaching and mentorship, assisting those to deepen and unlock their own intuitive abilities, unlock their own abilities to channel, connect to their own spirit team. So that's been more of my focus lately, but I have that clinical background. And so I can't forget that. Like it's just naturally woven. I'm sure you know.
It's a beautiful synergy, honestly, because I feel the same way. I work as I call myself a mind body health consultant because I really am a consultant. I am sometimes giving advice. I am sometimes giving solutions. I am sometimes, I'm doing hypnosis. Which is kind of like my surrender session, which is same
Yeah.
thing. Like they ask for something and it's like, nope, the body says this
Yeah.
first, that. So I totally get that. And that hardcore training that we went through, especially through the licensure process, which is extensive,
Yes.
is really important important grounding as you dive into this other place. And I feel, not that I don't trust other spiritual folks, but I kind of like want to know their results, their background or whatever, but I'm more apt to trust somebody who knows how to hold vulnerable space, who knows ethics, who,
Yes.
because you can learn that through your training and whatever modality you've been trained in, but it's sort of guaranteed when you've gone through this licensure process. Not to say there aren't like raging narcissists and
Right.
therapists and like really doing some manipulative stuff, because that happens too, but it's just, at least, there's that, there is something there.
Baseline.
Yeah, a
Yes.
baseline, exactly. um
Hmm.
and yeah, obviously, like I find that therapy can be limiting when you have all of these other tools to use, because therapy is a very specific place. It
Yes.
has a very specific purpose, and it is kind of just baby steps each week, just like physical therapy. You go in and you do the exercise, very repetitious. You do the
Yes.
exercises, you keep saying things. For people like you and I, it's like, nah, give us all the give us
Yeah.
all the stuff, let's go for the big shift.
Oh yeah.
And that's not really therapy. Therapy
Right.
is like very, you know
Regimented, and there are rigid guidelines, and that's not how human behavior works. And so I really like this resurgence or surgence of humanistic, of more self-disclosure, of human to human. And yeah.
But some people, they absolutely need, a lot of people absolutely need therapy. They need to go in and find, again, I like your word baseline. They need to
Mhm.
find out those baseline communication skills, that how they can
True.
use
Yes.
nonviolent communication. They need to find
Mhm.
the baseline, like re-parenting almost through the relationship, the long-term relationship with their therapist. It's a corrective relationship, that sort of thing. Not that that can't happen with you and I and our clients. Absolutely, my clients are like they're like my tribe too. I
Yes.
really take it seriously, the relationships, and I don't take on every client, because I have to feel a connection and feel safe with them and feel that I'm the best person for them in their journey, and have that be a mutual feeling as well. And I yeah, I feel like it's a whole different process. So I totally feel you, see you, where you're going, and I think it's a beautiful, beautiful service that you're offering people to get this, this deeper, much deeper place that the therapy profession doesn't really have a whole lot of space or fall.
Totally. And I'm sure you hear it too, that the work with the hypnosis, playing with the altered states of consciousness, rapid fire healing versus like 5 sessions in talk therapy and skills building, and then just being able to talk to your mom's inner child if you're doing inner child parenting, literally being transported. And then we have the knowledge of inner child parenting and parent, like we can give the skills, but then to guide them to specifically talking to their inner child, talking to their parents' inner child, do that in real life healing in the altered state of consciousness. I mean, that's so impactful.
Oh, it's so huge. And honestly, so now we're going to tap into like one of my pet peeves, I guess, because people ask me, they want to work with me, with hypnosis or whatnot. I have 20 years experience in social work and therapy, went through the hardcore licensure, PhD in mind body medicine, all this stuff. And then they're like, oh, that's very expensive for a hypnosis
Oh,
session. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like I couldn't be, first of all, have more experience, like well-rounded experience, and then you don't understand that one hypnosis session is like 12 to 24 sessions of therapy or more. It's
Exactly.
really the best value. Like the amount of money that I'm charging for the transformation you're going to get, and the least amount of effort, really, because you're laying back and receiving,
Exactly.
and it's so short. And like and so many of my sessions, people only have one. They only need one.
I know. Yeah.
And so they're like, how many sessions do I need? And I'm like, hopefully not too many, like maybe
Yeah.
one, maybe two, because
Hmm.
that's not how I work. Like I'm really going to the deep level, and our
Yeah.
training in asking the right questions and uncovering those things that are off really gets you to the root of the issue, that now, like you said, you go into the subconscious and you
Hmm.
can start to shift some stuff that could be coming for lifetimes. And I do past life regression groups too, which is interesting because people are sometimes more likely to want to do that, than hypnosis, and people still complain about the price of that too. And then I do a 12-week mind body skills group. I call it inclusion because it's culturally diverse,
Hmm.
everybody's
Hmm.
welcome, including mind body spirit. It's like all the things. It's like we are
Love
unity, we
that.
are one. And every week in those 12 sessions, you're learning a new skill to heal trauma. It's evidence-based for trauma. So it's like that's my only real version of therapy that I do anymore, because I find that heals so much
Totally.
deeper. And people complain about the price of that, but they'll drop the same on a vacation and drink themselves silly for a week. They'll drop,
I
drop it on
am
the car.
100% understanding and knowing of what you are sharing right now.
You feel my pain. Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't, I should say it's not even, it's a pet peeve, but it's not like, it doesn't get so irritating. So I'm like, if they don't get it, they're not ready. They're not ready for me, or
Right.
they're not ready for my work. And
Hmm.
also, when we think about like the healing work that women do, people
Right.
people don't want to pay for it because they just
Right.
feel like that's something that should be already,
Exactly.
it feels people,
Hmm.
you should do it for free, that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. But I know, when you spend that kind of time with a client and you are so energetically present, and you are even taking on their energy, talking to their and feeling into their spirit team and going into that subliminal space, it's very tiring afterwards. You need a lot
Yes.
of rest, and you
A
need to
hundred percent.
recharge, and to be even physically present and spiritually present for that kind of deep work, and to have your energy field clear. It takes it takes a whole lifestyle, which I'm very,
Exactly.
very, clear about and authentic about. And that's built into the price. And when you look at that, I'm like, I believe I should be charging more than I charge, but
Woman, I understand.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
all of that. It's all of that.
Yeah, I know you get it. So I know I'm looking at the time. Geez, I said my shirt was going to be coming down. This is the first time wearing it. It's not playing nice. Just extra bonus for the episode. Anything else that you'd like to say about the twin flame relationship, twin flame experience? Anything that came up for you that we didn't speak on? Sometimes you got to just interrupt me to get your,
Oh
your
no,
thoughts in, because
I feel complete. I feel that to add that the perspective of which we've been talking about ultimately at the end of the day, you decide what's safe for you.
yeah.
And it could be the most beautiful home, feels like home relationship, but if you're not feeling seen, held, supported, if it's too much, it's okay to tap out. It's okay. I think that needs to be said, because
Mhm.
I feel like some people stay even though it gets to the point where you've been hurt so many times and betrayed so many times, but they're like, but this is what it means to be in a twin flame relationship. This is my person. And they will totally put aside their own emotional wellness, psychological wellness, because it's their twin flame.
Mhm.
Like, no, ultimately, you decide what feels safe for you, twin flame or not. You can ascend in other ways.
Yeah, you can ascend in other ways. I love it. So freeing to know that there's options too, because the twin flame relationship is supposed to be expansive, but it can also feel very like domestic violence-y in the way
Yes,
of like, oh, I can't be
totally.
with anybody else. I can't get away from them. That's my energy, whatever else. And
Right.
so it's like, yeah, that energy, it could be everything it promised to be, or you could be alone and do this, or like you said,
Hmm.
you can have another divine partner coming in that you build a beautiful relationship with, which I think is also a comforting thought for those divine partners to be like, oh, you've been through a twin flame relationship, I'll never compare to that, like how do
Mm-hmm.
those folks feel as well. And so it's kind of like, oh, really opening up, talk about open relating, like
Right.
really
Right.
opening up
Yes.
all these possibilities of beautiful, beautiful relationships that still contribute to our soul growth without having to practice any kind of gross neo tantra stuff.
100%. 100%.
Do it the authentic way. Yeah.
Yes.
So where can people find you if they want to book a session with you, maybe like a surrender session or anything else that you're
Hmm.
offering?
Yes, thank you for asking. I have all of my most of my social media presence is on Instagram. I update regularly, and you can book a single session, surrender session, straight from my Instagram page. And right now, speaking of rates, I have significantly lowered the hourly price until for the rest of February, because I'm going through an apprenticeship right now to channel in a new way. So I need to work, and I want to work with more one-on-one clients
Mhm.
because as you know, we also learn and grow in the work that we do with the clients. So I am happy to work with more people during these surrender sessions and connect you to your spirit team and connect you to whatever is most needed for you to know right now on your healing journey. And also know that it's backed by clinically based, and like culturally sensitive, has done the work, been in the clinical field for 10 years. It's not just the woo, it's the practical as well, which I pride myself in. So Instagram is where you'll find my website as well to read more about me and my modalities. And yeah, that's I'm here to help.
I love it. I love it. And I love that you brought in that foundation, that clinical background and all of that, because, again, when we're talking about healing racism, colonialism, cultural appropriation, it's like we have to honor the foundations. We
Yes.
have to honor the foundations of things. So, like, where did this tradition come from, as well as what's balanced in our modern mental health, understanding,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
psychology understanding as well. It's like that sacred balance. So thank you so much for the work that you do. I'm really
Thank
excited
you.
to continue the conversations with you and see how we can collaboratively serve on this planet. And I'm really just excited for the clients who are coming your way too, that you'll be able to give them this unique perception into helping them move forward with health and bliss and healthy relationships and all of that. So thank you so much
Thank
for joining me
you.
tonight. Yeah, and
Thank you.
I hope people go to your Instagram after this, at least to watch your videos. Relational trauma healing, or relational healing one, parts 1 through 4, I think is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. It
Oh,
was so awesome being here. And thank you for all the work that I can say the same about you, how you are such an embodiment of that sensual and psychological, clinical, spiritual, like more of this in the world, right?
more please. Taurus North Node. Here we go.
Yeah.
We've got a couple years of it. Thank you so much. I honor your compliment. I honor you being here, and looking forward to speaking again.
Yes, most definitely. And thank you to everyone that was tuning in. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. All right, good night.
Good night.
Bye, Cindy. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Let me find my end now button. Thanks for putting up with my swollen face, my oral surgery.